Yesterday we got a pretty massive patch to Path of Exile 2, and we were met with like a literal dissertation of patch notes. I exaggerate, but it was a lot, and while most of the attention went to endgame adjustments, monster modifiers and changes, things like map modifiers, fast travel options, and changes to the trial of Secamus, there were definitely some buffs to player skills that I think kind of slipped through the cracks here, and in this video I really want to focus in on two key buffs that took chaos-centric builds and elevated them substantially, like my Chaos Witch build. All of the gameplay in the video is post-campaign, by the way, and into the endgame grind. But with that, let's take a quick look at these two buffs and see what they're actually going to do for you on the battlefield. First up is this bit of text in the patch notes under the skill balance portion of the document. It reads, increased the damage growth per level of Essence Drain, Contagion, Profane Ritual, and Chaos Bolt. Results in approximately 33% more damage at gem level 25. So basically, to put this in simple terms, every time you level up any of these Chaos abilities, they're going to get even more powerful than they originally would have. So you might gain 300 more damage on your next level up, when you would have only received something like maybe 210 previously. So these start to add up very, very quickly when you're stacking these skills like you're supposed to be. People still like to think of skills a la carte on their own, when in reality you need to consider the full picture. For example, my Chaos build incorporates all four of these skills often on the same mob of enemies. If I throw out my Contagion skill to afflict an enemy, then I throw down Despair and start tossing down Essence Drains and Chaos Bolts. Now the entire mob is going to be suffering from a whole lot of damage over time. And as soon as one of them dies, that Contagion, it's now going to mutate, get even stronger, and that damage is going to start compounding and compounding on top of this buff of, on the base damage. So you think of like an exponential growth of some kind. 3 to the third power is a lot smaller than 5 to the third power, right? This damage is going to compound over time, and the distance between how much damage Chaos builds are doing, before yesterday, compared to how much damage they're doing now, once these damage numbers have started to compound with the growth and the snowballing effect, now it's wildly different. I want you to just watch as mobs and even some yellow bar enemies in the background gameplay, I just stack all of these debuffs on them, and then I essentially just sit back and watch as the damage compounds and snowballs and eliminates the entire mob of enemies essentially on its own. Add on top of this, I'm using Withering Presence as well as Dark Effigy, the turret, to do continuous damage on an enemy afflicted with a Chaos debuff, which is essentially the entire mob. I mean, you look at that Effigy, and it's firing like a fully automatic machine gun, just shooting stuff everywhere. And the Wither debuff is making all of these enemies weaker to Chaos damage. So when you read in the patch notes a net 33% buff to these skills over time, don't just think 33%. Think about the thousands upon thousands of extra damage points you're going to be doing as these skills interact with one another to compound those base values and take them even higher. The second part of the patch that I want to focus in on for a little bit is this little line of text under the support balance section of the notes. It reads, the Decaying Hex support now deals 60% of intelligence as chaos damage per second, up from originally 30%. Now, if you're not familiar with this support skill, you can apply it to your Despair curse. Despair is a glyph that you place on the ground, and any enemy that is inside of it will be cursed, and they will take additional chaos damage, basically giving them a weakening effect to chaos damage. So without the debuff that the curse applies, table that for now. Let's just consider the Decaying Hex buff. So for me, Decaying Hex would, at my current intelligence level, be doing 110 damage per second for 8 seconds, which is an additional 880 chaos damage over time, total now in the mix. That damage over time is applied to everything affected by my Despair cast. But then, you consider that the Despair debuff is actually going to make the enemies inside there weaker to this same chaos damage that we're going to start applying. So it's going to do far more than that. As with all Chaos abilities, you have to consider all of them working together and compounding and growing in strength. As ailments are shared, curses are passed forward to other enemies, and all the while enemies are getting weaker to Chaos damage while taking more Chaos damage up front. It's a crazy snowball effect here that leaves entire mobs in shambles. And if the contagion can grow by killing the smaller adds, it will be extremely powerful by the time it gets passed on to the bosses in your maps too. Ultimately, this patch had an extremely notable effect on the potency of Chaos builds in Path of Exile 2. I'm excited to continue leveling and grinding, and especially raising my intelligence even higher to take full advantage of the Decaying Hex buff here. I'll be sure to follow this video up with even more fleshed out endgame testing with Chaos as I continue to improve my build. I will say one thing, an item that is on my wish list is, and this is what other people playing as witches have echoed as well, but we're really hoping that we get some serious buffs to the Blood Mage Ascendancy, because right now it is the lesser of the two by a landslide, and taking full advantage of it means almost putting yourself on death's door just to cast all the curses and debuffs that we want into the field. We basically have to take all of our HP away to apply those things, and the leeching of life just doesn't happen quickly enough to offset the risk of casting a spell, which is kind of a problem for a witch, for a caster in general. So hopefully we get some good changes, some buffs to the Blood Mage down the line as well, so that we can really see this thing start to come into full swing in endgame builds and have a real solid place there. But as it stands, there are very few Blood Mages in the upper echelon of gamers in the endgame right now, and it has a lot to do with survivability. Thanks so much for watching the video today. If you enjoyed it, would you let me know by leaving a like in the video, as that's the best free way to support the content right here on YouTube, and consider subscribing for additional Path of Exile 2 content. Be warm and well fed, my friends, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.